The following is brought to you by the Starfleet Podcast Network, SPN, The Spin.
Having never gone to a convention and then going for 3 or 4 days of Star Trek, it was like eating too much of your favorite food. Mm-hmm. And I walked out of there going, I don't know if I want to watch Star Trek again. I think I've done enough.
You got Star Trek Overload?
I did. I got Star Trek Overload.
Red alert.
Mark is here to talk to us about, and this was the best thing that I had seen. It's called Stalled Trek. And it's like a Star Trek series, but with Muppets, like with dolls. And I was
doing that right now.
Write that one down. Yeah, I want to hear.
If you search for Stalled Trek, the YouTube channel is where you can watch them.
That's awesome.
And I will say they're puppets, not Muppets.
Puppets.
Muppets are owned by, I guess, Disney now, since they own everything. But that's.
How did you? What gave you the idea to do that? That's what I want to hear about. You just wake up one morning and said, I should do a Star Trek show with puppets.
So it's a long story with lots of interruptions, but back in I guess about 95, 96, early 96, I was working at a school and we had internet access back then. And so when the web sort of came in, I made a homepage like everyone was doing, and I'm part of that was my Star Trek page. And I had this idea that I was just going to concentrate on the original series. And so I called it Largent's No New Trek page, which everybody misunderstood as me saying there should be no new Trek. But that wasn't what I intended. And so while I was doing it, trying to figure out things to put on it, again, this was very early days for the web. I thought, well, I'll make an episode guide. So I started typing out little things. I didn't get very far into it, but I guess on one of the early ones, remember Spock was referred to originally as a Vulcanian instead of a Vulcan.
Yes, I remember that.
And I was typing that in and I made a little typo and it was Vulcanine. And I thought, that's funny. He's a dog. And then I thought, well, in Amok Time, he basically goes into heat. And I started thinking, there's dog stuff I can do with this. So I really wanted to do it as an animated cartoon. Keep in mind, my old Mac Quadra that I had at the time had a whopping 4 megabytes of RAM. And
that was all you needed. That was it.
What would you ever need any more than that for?
Yeah, my first computer
to make an animated movie. Yeah, that was the part that I couldn't quite
20 meg hard drive. You're fine.
Oh yeah, a 386 SX. I mean, if you could afford the SX, you were the most popular person in the neighborhood on that modem. Yeah. Dialing into the internet. Ooh, that was that was magic.
I remember one of my students sent me a 1 megabyte file and I yelled at him for a half hour afterwards. I said, you know what you've done to me? I can't. So I started with the idea that, well, maybe I can do it as a kind of sort of online comic book. And again, back then when you do the monitor was 640 by 480.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That was all the pixel real estate.
Again, that was all you ever needed.
Yeah. Well,
VGA. See, I had SVGA. I must have been rich. I was running big time.
Yeah, you were. Yeah. So I couldn't actually put dialogue on the art. So I would have sort of a panel showing an illustration, and then I would just have the dialogue as text running around it.
Mm-hmm.
And then every once in a while, I would put in like an animated GIF. So I had a little gag where a guy gets his foot caught in the door, and I could have the little second prize, my Enterprise, go by back and forth and that kind of thing. And I got pretty far into it, and I got the chance of a lifetime. I lived in Mississippi at the time, where there was nothing close to being a convention to go to.
Right.
And that year, 96, was the 30th anniversary. And they had a giant 30th anniversary celebration in Huntsville, Alabama, because they have the space stuff there. Mm-hmm. And they had the entire original cast, and even had astronauts, which was really cool. And we didn't know at the time. That turns out that was actually the last time the entire cast was on stage together.
Oh, really?
Oh,
okay. Yeah.
DeForest Kelley died not much later.
Right.
So it was, it was either 3 or 4 days, and having never gone to a convention and then going to 3 or 4 days of Star Trek, it was like eating too much of your favorite food. Mm-hmm. And I walked out of there going, I don't know if I want to watch Star Trek again. I think I've done enough.
You got Star Trek overload?
I did. I got Star Trek overload. And I remember, too, they had Jerry Taylor there. And she had a little panel about writing for Star Trek that I stuck my head in. And I'll never forget, she said something to the effect of, it's our official position that there's no such thing as a new Star Trek story. And I remember that hit me bad. I was like, well, wait a minute. There's got to be still some new ones.
Yeah.
So
I'm not sure what she meant by that.
Well, I think at the time, what they were doing with Voyager was that they were going back and looking at previous Next Generation stories and maybe taking the B story and doing it a different way as the A story.
Okay.
They were kind of, and I don't think she specifically said there's this many Star Trek stories. And so I don't know if she was going on a very, kind of broad sense of that there's like 4 different types of stories. But I remember that feeling defeatist. And so Stalled Trek became stalled for the first time. I was like, I'll come back to it. I'll finish it later. And fast forward to, I think it was 2000. And there was a website. I can't remember now what it was called, info something, but it was letting you sell like PDFs, or you could sell electronic files. And I thought, I'll make a comic out of a Mutt Time. I don't think I mentioned it. I called it, instead of a Mock Time, I called it a Mutt Time because Mr. Spot was half Vulcanine, so he was a mutt.
Okay.
And
I see the full circle now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the dog jokes, I don't know if I should spoil any of them, but as many dog jokes as I could fit in, I found for the Vulcanine stuff. But so I went ahead and I finished it that time, and I put it up on there, and that was kind of fun. And again, it was, gosh, I'd really like to do it as an animated thing, because I sort of saw it almost, since you had the big fight with Kirk and Spock, I always saw that as almost like a Looney Tunes cartoon type thing. And I had a joke with a space anvil, and I just really wanted to do it animated. So I continued to, Flash was kind of coming in. I was learning that, and I was looking to see, is that an option to do? And I started and stopped it, I don't know how many times. And it went through all kinds of permeations. And at one point, even when I was working on Flash, it had occurred to me, if I made them puppets, then the lip syncing is a lot easier.
Right, because the mouth's only going up and down pretty much, so you can get away with a lot more.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And I had that idea, and I'd sort of done a little illustration of what a puppet might look like in Flash. But then I got sidetracked with other things, and at one point I started thinking, well, maybe 3D animation might be the route. There was a 3D program that had just come out that was reasonable. Well, it had been out for a while. They just came out with a Mac version, and it was reasonably inexpensive back then. And boy, I was way over my head even starting that. But so that again, it got stalled, and so finally I had come back to the animation program. I want to say that was like about 2008, and I started trying to work on some models of Mr. Spot. Of course, was the Mr. Spot character, and Captain Croc was the Kirk character. And
Captain Croc. I like it.
And so I reached a point where where I thought, well, okay, I could do this, but I'm not quite up to it being done as well as I would like to do it. So I found another project, and I worked on that for a few years. And it was in 2012, January of 2012. I said, I'm going to do it. I made it my New Year's resolution. I'm going to finish this thing. I bought a table at the Dallas Comic-Con. I live in Dallas. And I said, I'm going to have DVDs of A Mutt Time and a table at the Dallas Comic-Con in May. And it was just this bizarre thing after all of this time. Once I finally committed to doing it and said, I'm going to make this happen, it's like all the pieces fell in place. The puppet idea came back to me, and I realized that was a lot easier for 3D animation if you're only animating this.
Yeah.
And, they don't even need to blink. The fingers don't move. They just kind of do this. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking of it almost kind of like South Park. I was thinking if I could find a way just to cheaply animate it, then it's something I can do by myself and have a chance of being able to do it in a short period of time. The part that I wasn't expecting was that freed me up to make it look better than I expected it to look. And it's not, they have the uncanny valley where you're in 3D where, you can try to make something realistic, and then there's a point where it just looks creepy. And then, then it has to be really good where it doesn't look creepy anymore. No uncanny valley with puppets. So suddenly it looked like puppets. And it was fun doing, the old TOS lighting and putting, pink lights and blue lights and stuff around. And so
there are 4 lights.
There are 4 lights. Were you able to do there's an actual name for it. The light that just.
The little visor thing on Kirk's.
Yeah. Yes. It was kind of what is that? There's a name.
I don't know. There's a way that because those studio lights have like little,
visors.
Yeah. Things. Yeah. And you just basically do that, I think. And you end up with like, there is a word for it, but I don't know what it is. But yeah, I actually do have a shot where Kirk says the Bugs Bunny lines, of course, this means war. And I did it to where I just had the light there. And so by May, I had finished it. Kickstarter was relatively new in 2012. And so, I was able to work on it that point because I was unemployed. So I had kind of gotten to where, hey, I'm finishing this. How am I going to pay to make DVDs? So I did the Kickstarter, and to my great surprise, it was successful. And I got contacted by a guy who actually composed some music for it, because my initial idea was that I was going to just try to get by with almost no music. And I put in a character I called I'm blanking now on what Stinger, Lieutenant Stinger. And the idea was that instead of having the Sting music, this puppet would just pop up and go, bum, 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 bum. So you have your dramatic.
So that was the Sting. That was the puppet's purpose, was the Sting, was the stinger before and after the commercial break, like back in the day.
Yeah. So he just came out of no place and would give the Sting, and then but so this guy wrote some music and got it out there, and even at that time, I was considering maybe doing another one. At one point, I liked the idea of maybe making it into a web series. It was impractical because of how much time it took, but I had sort of thought that the next episode that I would do would be Balance of Terror, and sticking with the dog jokes, it would be Balance of Terriers. And the Romulans would be Ruffulons, and they would have a bird dog of prey ship. And I don't know if I could do it. So at one point I made parodies of the old Star Trek trading cards.
Yeah, I had some of those, the actual ones. Yeah.
Well, one of them actually has, I don't know if I can get this close enough to see it.
Yeah.
But that's a bird dog of prey.
Yeah. Oh, that is great.
And so I thought, well, that one's all shipbound. Maybe I can do that. The one that I wanted to do, though, was City on the Edge of Forever, my favorite episode. And I had actually, when I was in college, and video stores were coming out, and suddenly you could rent the whole original series. I had recorded on cassette, audio cassette. It was one of the long playing ones I had. Amok Time on one side and City on the Edge of Forever, and I commuted to college, and I would just listen to those episodes over and over again. And so it was almost like I couldn't separate the two of them. So for the next movie I did, I actually ended up doing a parody of The Walking Dead called The Wobbling Dead. Mm-hmm. And I needed a town or a city for the movie. And I thought, I'm going to plan ahead here. And so I recreated parts of the 40 Acres lot, the old RKO Studios, which was the Desilu Studios at the time, and was used in not only Star Trek, but Andy Griffith. I think The Adventures of Superman filmed on that back lot as well. But famously, you can, in City on the Edge of Forever, you could see Kirk and Edith Keeler walking by Floyd's barbershop.
Oh.
And I thought, well, if I make those, then maybe I could use them for The City on the Edge of Foreclosure. And I'd actually started.
Oh, that's funny.
I had actually started City on it when I did the comic book version of A Mutt Time and finished that one. I started on City on the Edge of Foreclosure, but I didn't finish it. So I guess it was like maybe 2016 or 2017. Just out of the blue, I got contacted by a blogger who covered Star Trek fan films, and he interviewed me. And at the time, they had just done this Prelude to Axanar,
right?
Which was a very glossy, actually had the lady from one of the ladies from Battlestar Galactica. They had Gary Graham as his character from Enterprise, and but they were being sued by CBS. So I did a parody of that called Prelude to Axtwear. And
the wordplay that you're able to use, like, wow, I mean, that takes some talent right there.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. So the gag with that was that as you're watching the movie, the lawyers are coming in and taking all the Star Trek elements out of the thing until finally it's all them sitting in a circle in chairs in their underwear with the lawyers saying, "Good luck with your movie." So that kind of got me back into a Star Trek mode again.
Right.
And I started thinking, well, maybe I can pull out these same models that I used for a Mutt time and do something. And I kind of was playing around, and by this time, enough years had passed that those models seemed very primitive to me. And especially the bridge set was really hobbled together. And at that point too, my 50th birthday was coming up. A friend of mine who was a big Star Trek fan too was also, his birthday was around that same time. And I said, hey, for us, turning 50, let's pretend we're kids again, and we'll go see the official, they have in Ticonderoga, they have the sets. I don't know if you know about that.
Yeah,
that was actually, that's what we were talking about.
Yep, earlier on.
Oh, were you? That's what you're talking? Yeah.
Just came back from.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. So we went to those sets, and I was taking like pictures behind the captain's chair. I was trying to find all the stuff that I couldn't figure out how to make as a model. And I went through and took a bunch of pictures, and I came back, and then I was like, okay, I've got to do City on the Edge of Foreclosure. And where with a Mutt time, like everything came together, and the heavens opened up, and it all just happened easily. Everything that could go wrong did go wrong with
Isn't that how it is?
City. Yeah. The software that I'd been using, 3D software, decided to no longer support the Mac. So
that's a big change.
It just so happened that at that point, Blender 2.8 was about to come out, and it was a little bit more user friendly than previous versions. So I said, okay, well, I just got to do it. I got to go to Blender, and all those models that I had built before now had to be rebuilt. But it was working out. So I did a little sort of test thing. I did a little short thing, and it worked out. And I said, okay, I can do this in Blender. And then, of course, I'd been unemployed for a long time, just working as a freelance graphic designer. Suddenly, I got hired full time, which really gets in the way of working on a movie. Yeah,
that work thing. I'd still be in Ticonderoga.
Yeah,
you have to work.
Pesky
exactly. And so it kind of dragged out. It was taking me longer, but it was really coming out well. And I got the very good fortune. Whenever you do like a Kickstarter or Indiegogo or something like that, you start getting kind of this spam mail from people like, do you need a voice actor? Do you need this? Do you need that?
Yeah.
And this guy I had never heard of contacted me. His name was Max McGuire. It still is Max McGuire. I hadn't changed his name. But he contacted me as a composer, and he worked for a composer named Stephen Barton. And he had worked on like Star Wars, one of the Star Wars games. So Max had actually worked on the orchestration. So he had recorded some of it in Abbey Road Studios doing Star Wars stuff. And I was like, wow. I was like, and so Max wanted to do the score. And I was like, great. Because the way I approach these is, even though they're comedies and they're parodies, parody works because it's serious or it's played serious, even though it's really funny or stupid or ridiculous. So I was like, I don't really want a comedy score. I want, a proper dramatic score, and City on the Edge of Forever is a very dramatic thing. So it worked out. Then, of course, COVID hit. But that had the plus of me then being at home all the time. Mm-hmm. And Max was at home all the time, too. He lives in England. And instead of me finishing the movie and then him scoring it, it was, hey, I just finished this sequence. Can you work on the score with this? And so it became a much more collaborative thing. We could talk about the music how it was going to go from here. One of the things about City on the Edge of Forever, it was one of the last, or if not the last episode that was produced for the first season. And the way you would do music back then is that you would budget only certain episodes would get a full score. Then within the same season, you could reuse tracks,
right,
to fill out the thing, so that you didn't have to pay for a full score for every episode.
Sure.
And they had already used up that budget. So, but they knew City on the Edge of Forever was going to be good, so they did a half score. All the stuff in New York, well, most of the stuff in New York had a new score, so there were new pieces written for it. But the rest of it was all taken from other episodes. So you couldn't really have like an Edith Keeler theme that carried through the whole episode because you only had a partial thing. And so that was one of the things I was like with Max. I said, I want to be able to. One of the things they couldn't do in City on the Edge of Forever is have like an Edith Keeler callback, you know, when Kirk and Spock and McCoy get back to the Guardian planet. And I just thought, wow, that'd be much more impactful. And of course, I'm doing a comedy, but I was still talking about that. So those are the kind of things that I could work with Max. And the great thing was, it was really inspiring me to keep going. So I finally finished animating it. I think it was March or April of 2021. I told you this was a long story.
That's fine. That's great. Tell as long as you want. I like hearing about this.
I always say that Stalled Trek, it was named perfectly because it was constantly stalled. But one of the great things is that since Max's score was so excellent, I actually did another round of fundraising and was able to hire a sound designer, so that I'm like 60% deaf in one ear and a little bit deaf in the other. So audio is not my strong suit.
Right. Sure.
And that I think took it up a notch. So I was very pleased with how it came out, and I decided I would enter into some film festivals with it. So I did that for about a year and a half, and I did pretty good. It won about 15 awards. Got into 20 something festivals, including the sort of really cool one for me, being around my age, was Kevin Smith had bought a movie theater. It's the Smod Castle or something like that. And so he decided to do a film festival, and I got Stalled Trek into that festival. Got to go up to New Jersey and watch it with an audience of not Star Trek fans. And you want to talk about sweating bullets, it sounds awesome. I'm going to get to see my movie with an audience. And then it's like, oh my goodness, there's going to be an audience there. What if they don't laugh? What if they hate this? And so I was panicking, and finally it started. And I forgot that the puppets were funny in and of themselves, just being puppets.
Mm-hmm. Were you sitting in the back?
He laughed when.
Were you sitting in the back worried, scared?
But I was really thinking maybe I could just duck out if it was too painful. And thankfully, there were a couple of comic shorts, because they had it they were in blocks. So I think there were like about 8 short films shown in this one block that I was in. And so there had been a couple of comedy ones before that. So I think people were warmed up a little bit to the idea of laughing. And then they got laughs and then got applause at the end. And I was like, wow, that was a really cool experience. And then I actually got to premiere it at the 55th what do they call it? The 55-year mission, Las Vegas, what used to be the Star Trek Las Vegas.
Oh, holy moly.
I was there.
Well, you say that, but I got it on. I was in the B room. So there were like celebrities in the main room, and that's where everybody was. And there were maybe about 20 or 30 people.
But still.
But I did get to see it. And Scott Mance was the host for the panels. And so we got to watch it. And that was really the first time I got to see it with an audience. And it was a Star Trek audience, which was very important to me. And I remember telling somebody afterwards that you make this movie and you think, oh, it's done. But really, with a comedy, what it's missing are the laughs.
Right.
And I have in my head what I think is going to be funny or how something's going to go over.
Don't we always?
But yeah. And so I remember watching it, and I didn't remember to get any pictures. I was going to like record audio. I didn't do any of that. I was very, I was frazzled by the whole thing. But I just remember sitting there going, this was the magic, was that I was getting to hear the movie with those laughs, with the reactions from it. So that was very cool. So the whole thing was just, like, for me, this is just a hobby. This is just something I'm doing for fun. And to be able to have people laughing and enjoying the thing that you've made, that's a really cool thing. So that was, there were a bunch of little high points of one of the conventions, not conventions, one of the festivals. I won an award called the William Shatner, Auteur Filmmaker Award or something like that. And
that's pretty cool.
And I was like, I got a William Shatner Award. I'm sure he doesn't know anything about it, but it was exciting to me, but as a Star Trek fan. And, so it was just a really cool thing. And then I was like, I'm done. It took 3 years to make City on the Edge of Foreclosure. I've done all these things. I'm out of it. And then I was really missing working on a movie.
Just when you think you're out, they pull you back in.
I'm going to make it a trilogy. Yeah, exactly. I want to make one last film. So I was thinking, do I do Balance of Terrors? And it really wasn't going. I didn't know that I wanted to do one that had something to do with space battles, because Amok Time and City on the Edge of Forever don't have much space stuff. And the Doomsday Machine came in.
Yes. And
I just kept thinking, that is the one. Not only a really great episode, but ripe for parody. And a lot of things you get shuttlecraft, and you have space stuff. So there were these things that I had not really gotten to do before, and I thought, oh, this will be the one to go out with. So I am deep into production on the Doomsday Machine.
I'm sitting here trying to guess to myself, okay, Doomsday Machine, what's going to be the parody name to that? And I couldn't come up with it. And it's like, it's right there. It's the only one.
Yes.
As soon as he tells it to you, you're like, oh yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's like when someone tells you the password's 1, 2, 3, 4 and tell them, oh, you shouldn't make it that. That's too easy to guess. Bullshit. You don't guess that. It sounds easy once you hear it, but it's not like you're gonna guess it.
Yeah, that's when you know you've come across the right name, is when it seems like, oh, that's the one that it had to be. But it's been a lot of fun, and then so I'm busy on it and thinking I'm closing it out, and so part of that was I decided I'd make a box set for this last fundraising, and this is the box form, which is a nifty. I decided I was trying to figure out how to do the box for the set, and it's 3D printed. I came up with that, and the gag was I figured out if I modeled it so that I could fit a 5x7 postcard on either side, then I can have the art. And
I'm going to give you my address. I want to buy one of those for sure. That looks like something I need to have in my collection. It looks awesome.
If anyone wants one, there's still 12 left. Go to stalledtrek.com and that'll take you to the Indiegogo. But you might can tell a little bit from the back. I loved the VHS tapes in the 80s that they came out with the original series, and it had this sort of background with the things. And so the actual DVDs that are going in, the covers are made to look like those VHS tapes. And so for the actual cover of the front, there was a promotional poster that was hanging in the radio station in my college for it. And it was basically this. It had the three characters, and it was a painting. But so that's what I parodied for the front of the box set. But yeah, I've been having fun. One of the things when I did the second round of fundraising for City on the Edge of Foreclosure, I did a photo comic, and I made the covers look like the old photo books. So you have Mutt Time
nice.
On one side, and then it's a flip one, so it has City on the Edge of Foreclosure on the other side. And yeah, so it's comic book size instead of book size, but I made it look like that. It's been I don't know about you guys, but I'm 55, so Star Trek, when it was in syndication, was my childhood. And in the 70s, it was extremely popular. And so I had for one Christmas, I got the Mego figures with the little Enterprise bridge. Right. Unfortunately, I had a dog that destroyed all of them. But for a small period of time, I had these, and just there were all these kind of things that coincided with that. I around that same time, I loved Star Trek. I discovered Mad Magazine. I loved Mad Magazine, and
is that still around? Because I used to look at that all the time.
I don't know. Is it?
So it kind of sort of is. They do, it's only reprints. I think they maybe do one new thing per issue, and I think it's direct sales only, so it's not on the newsstands. But I love that. And at the time too, I can bring the puppet things in because I was living, my parents were in the military. I was in southern Florida at Homestead Air Force Base. And in Hollywood, Florida, there was a period there in around 75, 76, because of American graffiti, where 50s were popular again. And so, the Happy Days, and there were all these things. So they brought back the Howdy Doody show, Buffalo Bob, and they were filming it in Hollywood, Florida. And my mom got us tickets. They would film like a whole week's of shows on a Sunday afternoon. And so we went there and got to be in the peanut gallery. And I ended up, there was a raffle. My mom knew how much I liked the puppets and stuff. So I got to sit in the front row, and I actually got to talk to Buffalo Bob at one point. And
that's cool. That's cool.
With the power of YouTube, I actually got to see it finally after all those years, because when you're a kid, you can love something, and then 6 months later, you don't remember it was even a thing. By the time it actually aired, I wasn't watching the Howdy Doody show anymore. So I never saw myself on television. And so with YouTube, it suddenly popped up. I was able to figure out which one it was and find my interaction with Buffalo Bob. And so if you think about it, you got puppets, you've got Star Trek, and you've got Mad Magazine. How could I not make Stalled Trek? It's all those things that sort of formed me as a little kid. And but the weird thing that's happening now, I feel like I'm just talking here. So if I'm going on too long, just let me know.
No, there was one thing I wanted to ask you about before we got too far away from what you were talking about, because I thought of this when you were telling us about seeing it with other people, seeing your movie with other people, with an audience at the movie theater and at the convention. So I'm one of those people that when I edit a podcast, when I make a podcast, put it out there, and I don't watch it after that, or I try not to. I do not like the sound of my voice. Can't listen to it. I have a very hard time going back and listening to any podcast. I've never liked it. Never have. So did you experience the same thing with your movie? Like it was nice to make and to do, but it was kind of hard to sit and watch because, and I'm you know what I'm saying? You get where I'm going?
I absolutely do. Well, so mine, takes, in the case of City on the Edge of Foreclosure, it took 3 years to make it. All the jokes were no longer funny to me. I'd watched every frame of this movie so many times that I can't watch it like an audience member. All I can see are errors that I think are there, or things that I would have done differently. With the voices, I do have a little bit of the fact that I'm not using my actual voice. So, if I'm doing, one of the characters, I do a sort of impression of them, but I also can pitch it up or pitch it down. So like my Captain Croc is a little bit higher than the voice I do. And Mr. Spot is pitched a little bit lower so that I'm not really hearing my voices.
Okay.
But I do sit there until the people start laughing. I just sit there thinking, this is, I'm very introverted. So, in a way, here you're doing a podcast, you're right out there. I can hide behind the puppets. So,
right. Everyone has to look at my face, which is, I don't know what the opinion is on that, hearing the voice, but you're right. It's one of those things where you're putting your work out there and have to be ready to be judged on it.
Right.
Or hear the comments on it, and either the praise or the criticism about it, which I'm sure is probably another thing that's hard to do, is to look at, hear, or listen any feedback on your work, because you're afraid you're going to hear what did I do wrong? What's not right about this, et cetera, et cetera.
What would you do next time differently? Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I've had this conversation before with I've talked to a few people who've made fan films. And my philosophy is this: nobody makes a fan film to ruin your day. They're making this out of their love for whatever the fandom that it's part of. They're putting it out there, and that's a courageous act. I remember when I finished A Mutt Time, at the time, you still had to send a hard copy of the disc to the replicators. They didn't have a way to upload it to their website or anything. And I remember going to the FedEx place, giving them my money, dropping it off, going out to my car and wanting to throw up because I suddenly realized it's out there now. There's nothing I can do about it. This is how it's going to be. And I'm pretty good at self-deprecation. I try not to take myself too seriously. And I am making funny Star Trek puppet movies. So this isn't high art.
How can you take yourself too seriously when it's Star Trek puppets? Yeah.
Sometimes I get negative comments and I'm like, you are absolutely correct. I shouldn't be doing this. It's a lot of stuff I could do with my time than do this. But at the same time, I'm putting a lot of time into this, and I'm not doing it for people not to enjoy it. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that's just happened in the last month and a half is, after all these years the algorithm at YouTube suddenly discovered Star Trek. And I went from having, I think it was around 700 or 800 subscribers to I think I'm at like 8,200 or something. It was just within like a month.
That's great.
And so suddenly these movies that have been, for years, well, in the Times case for years, and just a trickle of people watching it, suddenly just started getting all these views. And so I'm getting all these comments. And it's an incredible thing. I mean, obviously, there's no monetary reward in this because there's just not enough of an audience. Mm-hmm. But I'm hearing from all these people. Suddenly, I'm getting hundreds of comments, whereas before there were just a few. And so many of them are, "You just made my day," or "I needed this laugh today," or just talking about some joke that really hit them right, and they laughed really hard at. And I thought, that's a really cool thing that you can put out in the world. Is just a few minutes of laughter. I'm kind of old fashioned in my humor, I think. So I don't really do blue humor or anything like that. So it's lighthearted. There's no spite involved in the humor. And I mean, I love Star Trek. And I think it comes through on the parodies. I am making fun of those episodes, but it's coming from a place of love. I love these episodes. I've always said I don't think I could do a parody of something I didn't like, because who'd want to have to sit through something you hated enough times to get all the information that you need to do a parody of it.
Right.
So that's been incredible. But now it's all these people going, well, where's the rest of them? How come you haven't done all 79 episodes?
Oh my God. How long would that take?
More than years that I have left in my life. Yeah. I mean, I've been, my real plan was, after I finished Doomsday Machine, I kind of want to work on something original, just do something different. Mm-hmm. And I kind of feel too that, people say, "Oh, we'll do all the episodes." That sounds good, but I think after 3 or 4, you kind of got it. It just becomes repetitive. So yeah, I think 3 is a good number to end on.
You're not trying to do the Fast and Furious franchise where you're up to like 12 movies.
I lost track. Is it 8, 9?
Up to 10.
Are they really?
Oh,
boy. So I quit watching like at 6 or 7. Just like, what else you got to do?
Well, and then the other thing also is using the well-known episodes is the way to go. I couldn't. I think I agree with you, is that less is more when you're doing the big episodes, the ones that even if you're not a hardcore fan, if you're a casual fan, these are the episodes you've most likely seen or seen some of or heard about. And
but you got to go out. If you're going to do the one last one, you got to do Spock's brain. I mean, just
God, no.
I can't tell you how many.
Get that bad karma out of here.
Said, and my stock answer is always that Spock's brain is already a parody of Star Trek.
Just like when they brought Boimler onto Strange New Worlds from Lower Decks. I think you could probably do the same type of thing to Spock.
Yeah,
bring that over to reality somehow.
Well, so the thing I'm toying with, and I'm not committing because I haven't even finished the Doomsday Machine yet, is doing Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Oh boy! Okay.
So I've been toying around with the idea of a parody Encounter with No Point. And and I really I don't know. It's a huge commitment to do. And sometimes it sounds like fun, but when you're working on something for like 2 years or more, you really got to like it.
Yes.
Sure.
Because
you want to see it through.
Like you said, by the time I'm at the end, all the jokes aren't funny to me anymore. So the fun part is coming up with it initially, writing the script, figure out the things. And it's also fun animating when you start to see how they land. But the rest of it is just a lot of work. So, you really have to love the idea and want to see it through. There have been several ones that I started that I never finished, with the idea. And as much as I love them, it just never worked. I sort of need a hook to get to the end of it. And, it can be as simple as I love that space anvil joke, which is in a mud time. I'll spoil this much of it. When they're fighting, there's at one point that Captain Croc is hiding, and he's got his communicator out, and he's going, I know how heavy it is. And you'll do it because I'm your captain. That's why. And you see Mr. Spot is sort of looking around trying to see what's going on. And you hear a transporter sound, and he looks up, and a space anvil transports above his head and drops on it. My desire to see that was it gave me a lot of fuel to, because it eventually took 16 years to get the first one done from when I started, on the website to when I actually made the video. So, the first time I showed that one to an audience, which was a very small convention, the first question I got afterwards was just why? Why did you do this? I was like, I don't have a good answer for you. I just
say, I don't know. I don't know why.
Why did
it was one of those things.
Because I can.
Yeah. I mean, partly it was, I wanted to see it but there's not a good reason that I can point to for spending all this amount of time. Although with the last one, the cliche of the sort of middle-aged guy who, as a hobby, puts together one of those old sailing ship models, where he cuts every little piece out of wood and every little string. And that this guy is just doing this to relax, but it takes him, years to make this thing. That's kind of what I felt with when I was working on City on the Edge of Foreclosure was, there's just so much I have to do, but I can just keep doing a little bit each day like it's a hobby.
True.
And then when all that time adds up and you end up where you have it.
And it's something you're proud of when you spend that kind of time on it.
Sure.
Oh yeah. It's so there is that part, but I think what let us down this was the negative comments. It still stings when somebody says, I think I got one comment that said stage 4 anal cancer is funnier than this.
Oh, whoa!
Which I would argue that's not true. I don't think there's a lot of humor with that. So I think mine's funnier.
There's always that person that thinks they can do better, or the critic, but
there's always the critic.
Yeah,
and just ignore them and move on. Mark, it's been great meeting you. I have to sign off, but it's been great meeting you. I love hearing the story. Of the
awesome.
I was at Star Trek.
Nice meeting you.
I was there.
Oh, really?
I was there.
Yeah.
Yep. And I was.
You were probably in the big room. Yeah.
I had the hat and the shirt somewhere. So I was actually there. So again, great to hear from you. And Jefferson, thanks for the invite.
Yeah.
You guys get a chance, get to Ticonderoga. It's well worth the trip. And we will see you on the next vlog.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining. I appreciate it, Doug.
So you guys have a great one. See you.
All right, we will.
Bye. Nice meeting you.
So here's the other story that I want to hear about. your collection that's behind you, the comics, all the collectibles, it looks like you've got a lot of good hobbies.
I do like a lot of those things. I love comics. I really wanted to be a comic book writer or artist growing up, and I self-published a couple of comics with a friend, and it was fun, but that was never a thing. But when I was maybe 15 or 16, I used to walk to a nearby convenience store to buy comics. We didn't have a comic shop in our town, and this was the 80s, and they were putting the comic book racks next to the dumpster. I guess they'd gotten new ones or something. Okay. And so I immediately called my parents and I was like, bring the van. I've got it. So I have this one and I still have one in storage. I've got two of the old Hey Kids comics racks, which I love those things because that was the way I got comics, was going to a drugstore, a convenience store, and flipping through those spinner racks. And you used to have to hunt them down because they didn't always put out the comics. And, and I knew which comics I got that came out on Tuesdays and which ones that came out on Thursdays. And I would beg my parents to take me to different grocery stores and stuff to track them down. And
the trips around town for the comics. Yes, I went through the same thing. And I think that was fun, going to the different places, comic book shops and whatnot, to collect all those things. You've got on a little piece of paper written down which issues you're looking for or that you need. Yeah.
And so I was big into that, and that certainly fit in with a lot of the stuff. I said I love Star Trek. I was 9 when Star Wars came out, so I loved Star Wars. And I don't know if you can see, they came out with the retro figures. I had the figures when I was a kid, but when I turned 15, I thought I was too old for toys, and I let my kid brother have them, and he destroyed all of them. But they came out with the retro Star Wars figures. I wonder if I can move this without destroying anything. Let me try.
Be very careful. Yeah, because I don't want.
It's super glued. It's super glued together, so it should stay. But one of the things I loved to do was I had the Death Star playset, and I would just set up the characters on there. Stay with Chewbacca. So I was playing with 3D models, and I said, I can make a stand for these retro figures. It's kind of like the old Death Star playset. Yes. And so that's one of the cool things.
That is pretty cool. That's creative too.
Is being able to go back and it's fun too. I haven't done anything with it yet, but I 3D printed my second prize, which is the little prize in Star Trek. And
good work there.
Of all the things I have, this is probably the fun. This is the thing I can't walk past without picking up and just
Space, the final frontier, doing the opener each time with it. The flying sounds.
This ability, the ability to be able to make something in a computer and then print it out and have your own toy is something that's really cool. I envy the youth of today.
That's pretty awesome. We'll make our own toys at home.
Oh yeah,
with a 3D printer.
If I could have done, computer animation when I was in high school or whatever, I mean, I'm sure they wouldn't have been very good, but I would have loved being able to make those kind of things back then. But it was really, growing up, it was an impossible dream. I mean, you couldn't afford to buy a camera, and developing film was even a big deal. And the thought of doing something like animation, really did require a studio and or a lot of resources that I did not have growing up. So it's astonishing that I can sit with a computer and make something. But I didn't get to brag about my friend Max, who did the music.
Okay.
So I mentioned that he works for a composer named Stephen Barton.
Right.
So at one point I get an email from Max, and he's like, if you were really going to tell somebody about Star Trek, which episodes would you recommend that they watch? And so I went through and I put some key ones, and he said, well, specifically more about the Next Generation stuff. And I started thinking, what's going on here? So Stephen Barton he was the composer for season 3 of Picard. So Max went from working on Star Trek to working on Star Trek.
Wow.
And he did some of the I can't think they call it now, where they put it together for the orchestra, as well as writing some additional music. Mm-hmm. So I did buy the season 3 soundtrack on vinyl, and took a picture of Mac's credit in the liner notes. And
that's got to be pretty cool. Now, did his
so cool.
Did his work on Star Trek help him get Star Trek?
No, he was working for Stephen Barton. Stephen Barton got the gig, but
right,
but it is hilarious to me that he went and as it stands, he's going to do the music for the Doomsday Machine, which I'm very excited about, because the Doomsday Machine is one of those that the music is very iconic for and much has been made of the fact that how similar the Jaws theme is to the music from the Doomsday Machine.
Yes, it gives you, especially the scene where they really turn up the music, is when Commodore Decker is on that shuttle and he's just gradually, slowly getting towards where he's going to fly into the. Yeah, that's the music that they made for that is, I think it's pretty iconic. You hear that a lot.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I love the music from Star Trek. I grew up watching it over and over again, and it was so ingrained in you because of the fact that they reused cues over and over again in episodes. So you would learn everything. If you watched I Dream of Jeannie, you would suddenly start recognizing the same music used over and over again in the episodes, and just sort of gets stuck in your head. And so I'm very excited about hearing what Max is able to do with the Doomsday Machine, because I think there's a lot of really cool music that it's funny. Soundtracks now aren't like classic soundtracks. They're not as melodic. They're not as, they're more tonal. They're more of a mood music than they really are, like John Williams or that kind of thing. So it is kind of a stretch, I think, for someone of Max's generation to think of music that way.
Right.
Because that's not usually but the cool thing with season 3 of Picard was that they really did go back to a lot of the classic scores from the movies and from the television show. And, so that was really cool. And, so that's my beaming with pride thing, is that Max went on to work on real Star Trek. And so I just think that's
something to be proud of.
Yeah. I think he's going to be something big at some point. So I look forward to being able to say I knew him when.
Or make sure he remembers that. Don't forget about me.
Yes. Yeah. Don't forget about me. So no, I mean, why I do this thing. There's a thing about the fact that, you enjoy the journey, not the destination so much. And I think that's really what it comes down to. Is I found that after I'd finished the last one, I missed working on it. There's, it's a solitary, existence just sitting in front of your computer working to yourself. But there are little victories, little successes when you can make something work or make something, a joke work or something. And then, I can at least I'm entertaining myself and then hopefully of the people when it's done.
Well, I think that's probably one of the main things is if you're doing something that you like doing, then it's a lot easier to get through. And it helps if you wake up each day not dreading doing this thing or this project or doing editing, whatever it may be. Because I think we've all gone through something like that where you start a thing or a project, you think you like it well enough, but you get to a point where, okay, I have to finish this, but I'm not going to enjoy finishing it. And it can be hard. It can be hard keeping that dedication, but you've got a goal that you want to accomplish. And when you were talking about earlier with doing something here and there each day, like adding a little bit more to it, working on it steadily, reminded me of this summer. This is when I was a kid. I had one of those Enterprise D models, and it was it had all the places where there would be windows. It had those little indentations in them for the windows.
Right, yeah.
And I decided with this model, I said, I am going to sit here and each of these windows, I had a little, it was either a thumbtack or a toothpick, little tiny dot of the white and the black, and would just very carefully on each one. And I would do it. They had it kind of in sets, like there would be 2 windows here, and then 2, and then 1, 3, 2, whatever it is. So I would alternate each set, white, black, white, black. And that part alone, just doing a little bit each day, I would have to say that easily took close to a week doing that, because that thing had a lot. And it was, you get partway through it and you start asking yourself, why did I do this? What am I doing?
Why did I start this?
Why did
if I don't finish it, it looks bad.
It will look stupid if I don't finish it. So, but so it's good to not regret doing something that you like doing, because then the finished product is very rewarding.
Yeah. With this last one, it was a very different experience finishing it, because I had a sort of strange reaction to it. And I don't even know how to describe it so much as I was very happy to be finished. There was a sense of pride that I'd finished it. But there was also just a sort of strange sense that this thing that had sort of been an idea or a goal or a dream was gone now. There was this thing that was there, which was it. But for a long time, I didn't necessarily know what it looked like. I didn't necessarily know what it sounded like. I had ideas of what I thought it was going to be. And then here it is, all those I don't know, all those dreams or whatever just were done at that point.
Yeah.
And I remember there was just a weird, I don't know that it was melancholy, but there was definitely a different sense. I wasn't like, popping a bottle of champagne and dumping it over my head, running around. It was kind of like, oh, so that's it.
No one throwing a big jug of Gatorade on top of your head.
There was no parade. I didn't get any kind of accolades, but it was just this thought that I did it, and there was definitely a sense of satisfaction and definitely a sense of pride. I think it came out better than I even hoped, but it was real now instead of a thought or a concept or something. I don't know how to, again, I don't really know how to put that into words. It was very strange. I've never had that with any other project that I worked on. I just, it had taken a long time, 3 years, obviously. And I don't know. It was a different kind of thing. It's funny that, we call it creating things, and it really is an act of creation, and it's a strange sort of a thing to do, to make something, or make a piece of art or something like that.
Right.
And then, then it's out there and people tell you that you did things that you didn't know that you did.
Wait a minute. I didn't do that. I did what scene with what character?
Yeah. Somebody will think some jokes about something that wasn't the joke, or that wasn't.
Man, you missed it. You didn't get the point.
Yeah. They just read, it just becomes something that, it's there. And it's been funny with the fact that people have just sort of discovered it recently is, I did a Mutt Time in 2012 and to them it's brand new. And it's, I don't even remember parts of a Mutt Time.
It's kind of like letting your brain rest after you're done with something. You just forget all of it and move on to the next thing.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure I'd remember if I watched it, but that one's hard for me to go back to, because to me, I just keep thinking, oh, that was very early on. And I think I've advanced a little bit since then, but yeah, it's a cool thing. I will say though that you have a very good voice, and I know
Thank you.
We all hear our voice from the inside, and it doesn't sound like us when it comes from the outside, but,
I'm very disappointed that I don't sound like Optimus Prime when I hear my voice. And I've been told Autobots roll out. Yeah, I've been told, and I think you've probably heard the same thing, is you've got a good voice for this kind of thing, or you've got a good skill at this movie or project. And it's like, I don't agree with that. I don't think, I don't know. And like, really? Are you sure? Because I'm not hearing it.
Yeah. Well, we're all our harshest critics. And like I said, nobody hears the voice. Nobody hears your voice from the inside. They only ever hear your voice from the outside. So it sounds like your voice to them. But yeah, I do remember, in high school working at a grocery store, and someone said, "You have a voice for radio." And I was thinking, are they saying I should do radio, or are they saying I shouldn't be on television? Which is it? Is it that I have a good voice, or nobody needs to see your face?
Yeah, like, wait a minute, that compliment has to be, there's an insult in there somewhere, and I'm going to find it.
Yeah. There was one time when a guy came up to me once and he says, "You look like that guy on TV." And I was like, "Oh, what guy?" And he goes, "Oh, I don't remember something." And I was like, I don't know how to take that.
You look like guy on TV,
was that
but I don't
good
remember.
Or bad? Yeah. I'm like, well, what guy is it? Is it some handsome guy, or is it,
this is very vague.
Some, really old fat guy. Which is it? That means many different things based on their point of view as far as your point of view, and I think everything's that way. We can be our own worst critics, or we can also think we did something really great and it just fall flat with other people. So it's a give and take kind of thing. It's all perception and what mood people are in on the day. That
moody people. Yeah. So here's the last question I want to ask you to talk about. Has there been a time in doing any of these projects? Has there been a time, and what was it that may have told you, I'm not doing this. I'm done. I quit. I don't know why I started this. I don't want to do it. Was it any kind of a mood or a comment, something that made you stop and think, this isn't worth it, and I'm not going to keep spending time on it?
with all the ones that I didn't finish, yes, obviously there were times where it didn't click right. But so one thing that happened was when I did a Mutt Time, I did the Kickstarter, and although I was fairly far along at that point, and I was certain that I could finish it, I owed it to people to finish it.
Right.
And I didn't forget that. And so with City on the Edge of Foreclosure, I knew the first thing I needed to do was set up so that I had not only people that it's probably a little much to say that I owe these people this, but at the same time, I have this obligation, which I feel I have to complete. But also I'm getting encouragement from these backers who are excited about the project. And as you share pieces of it along the way, they're without even knowing it, they're cheering you on. And, so I found that when those times come, when I'm like, it's just too hard. I had one little sequence in City on the Edge of Foreclosure that was my take on Edith Keeler almost falling down the stairs. And I had this very elaborate thing in my head, the way it was going to go. And I just couldn't get it to work. And I got stuck. I was stuck on that shot for an entire month.
Oh, wow.
And I couldn't get it to, but I owed it. I had to get back and just keep trying. And then finally, I took a little bit of a break for, like a week or something. I just came back to it. And finally I figured out, how to do it. And, that's the difference, I think. Then I think if I didn't owe it to backers to do it, I wouldn't do it. Because there is a point where I can kind of, I've written the script, I can kind of see the movie in my head, and I've seen it. I don't really need to make it. I've seen it in my head.
Yeah.
So I could stop right there. And, but it's that point of I really feel the need to do that so that I will finish it. If it's left up to me, I might just like you said, just get frustrated with something or feel like it's not going to come out the way I wanted to, or see something shiny and just want to do something else. That happens a lot.
That squirrel runs by.
Exactly. And you're
Squirrel.
like, I'd much rather be working on that.
And you've started so many projects that it's like all of these are half done.
Yeah. And, sometimes though something will work that you can put into another. When I was in college back in '89, a friend of mine was taking a video production class, and he had to make a short video that had, X number of close-ups, X number of medium shots, is whatever. And he said, do you want to write something for us to do this? And so I wrote a Star Trek parody, and it was just us in the little, studio they had some basically little set pieces that were just like blocks that you could stack in different ways. We sort of stacked them up to make a little bridge set, and we did it. It's funny because there was no dog jokes in that, but I called Dr. McCoy Dr. McGruff in that.
That's perfect. Dr. McGruff.
And when a Mutt Time came, I said, oh, there's a dog name I can use, Dr. McGruff. And there was also a gag in it that I am putting in Domesday Machine. It's sort of my thought of, coming full circle. I can take this gag that I did in 1989 and now use it in this last one. So, you learn something, you do something will come from working on these things, even though you didn't complete them or they didn't work out.
Right.
And so that's kind of my philosophy of it. And, again, the best part of this is enjoying what you're doing. So
at the end of the day, that's the main thing.
Yeah. It's kind of like taking a long trip, and sometimes you'll go down the wrong road and go stuff, but you may see something cool down that road. It doesn't get you to where you were going, but that's part of the journey.
Right. Absolutely. Well, I'm sure you have heard this one before, but you need anyone to do any voice work, I'm doing the hustle. Because I've been a friend of mine, my best friend, who's an actor based out of LA. His name's Ben. He's been saying, Jeff, you should get into trying to do voice work or keep doing that podcast. And I said, I'm going to throw that out there with getting to know more people that are Star Trek fans or Star Trek related and different projects they're doing. Figure, hey, throw your hat in the ring. Well, Mark, I really, really appreciate you taking out the time to sit and talk with me about Star Trek. And if there's anything coming up, any projects, work, anything you're doing, or even just your social media that you want to tell our audience about so that we can get them looking in your direction, like your YouTube channel, website, anything like that?
Yeah, definitely search for Star Trek on YouTube, and you can watch A Mutt Time. You can watch City on the Edge of Foreclosure. You can see the trailer for the Doomsday Machine. There's a couple of other little short things up there. StarTrek.com will take you to the Indiegogo, which is where I'm funding the new one. You can be one of those backers that I'm obligated to finish this for, and be in on the ground part. And so that's always helpful. And that's about it. I like I said, I've really been enjoying the fact that people have actually discovered them now and started to watch them, because that's a big thrill. Like I said, it's a cool thing to know that you're putting some positivity out there, that people are getting a laugh. Things can be hard. We all know that. And so anytime you can kind of take a break, I think that's something. And there are some Star Trek fans who don't have senses of humor. This is not for them.
No, you don't say. Really?
Yes.
A Star Trek fan out there without a sense of humor? No.
Yeah, there are some of those. So this isn't for them. But if you do love Star Trek and you have a sense of humor, definitely check it out. I hope you get a kick out of them. Thanks so much for inviting me. This has been fun to, I hadn't thought about some of this stuff in a while. So it's kind of getting my energy back up again and re-inspiring me to keep going on this. And if there's something that comes down the road and you're right for the voice, I'll definitely get in touch with you, because I feel like you'd work cheap.
Yes. Free. I am a good deal. I'm a bargain.
Yes, I like that.
No price. It's something. If it's something you like to do for fun, then I've got my job. I've got that main. I'm not trying to make money off of podcasting. I'm not one of the big names. So it's like it's a hobby. It's all a hobby for me. Well,
right, and
yeah, it's like for you, it's a hobby for you. You're not trying to get rich off of it.
Yeah, and both of our hobbies also come with it with a love for Star Trek, which I think bonds all of us through this, and I think that's probably the coolest thing that came out of Star Trek is the fact that in a way that not many other things have, there's something about Star Trek that resonated with all of us who are fans, and in more ways than just simply liking a show or something. There's a definite positive message with Star Trek. This is as Roddenberry would say, I don't believe that Star Trek could happen, but I want to pretend that it can happen. I want us I want to see that future where we can all be better than we are. And the fact that so many people identify with that is a feather in the cap for the human race. That we want to get better. We want to see a brighter future, and so that's all of us who are in some way keeping that going. I think it's a cool thing.
Very inspiring. Thank you. So for all of our listeners and viewers, thank you for taking out the time to sit with myself and Mark to talk about Star Trek. And as always, live long and prosper. If you enjoyed this podcast, you can support us at patreon.com/BeyondTrek.
We are Beyond Trek Podcast. Lower your inhibitions and surrender your years. We will add inspirational and hilarious Trek content to your day. Your attention will adapt to subscribe to us. Resistance is futile.